Even the mainstream media now says a big red wave is likely inevitable come November. The New York Times reported recently the Democrats feared Red October has arrived. Pundits now say Democrats may have misjudged abortion as more of a factor with voters than the worst inflation and crime rates in decades.
Yeah, and you're hearing it everywhere. It actually is fascinating. The last couple of days in particular, Democratic consultants from Oregon to New York State in a near state of panic.
NBC News' senior political editor Mark Murray described his network's recent poll findings as, quote, striking.
Our poll shows Republicans with a 9-point advantage in high election interest, and that to us is striking. And it does conform with other polls out there showing that Republicans have the slight enthusiasm edge as we head into November.
The Hill's Carolyn Vakil wrote Friday, even deep blue Democrat strongholds like New York and Oregon are now in play for Republicans.
Well, how desperate are Joe Biden supporters coming into the midterms? Desperate enough to release this ad.
Biden, admin, 10K in my pocket, 10K in my pocket.
For Pell Grant recipients, that goes up to $20,000.
20K in my pocket, 20K in my pocket. Website. 10K in my pocket, 20K in my pocket.
The Washington Free Beacon reports Joe Biden's dark money group, Building Back Better Together, released that ad. Even Democrats have criticized the scheme when facing recession, with Obama administration official Jason Furman calling it gasoline on the inflationary fire. Social media came down hard on the ad, with @CheneyDesk summing up the video as possibly the worst political ad ever published.
Tim? Jeff Charles. Now, Jeff, I know you were just watching that ad, and I know you were very, very impressed. A court temporarily put brakes on President Biden's student loan forgiveness program. A lot of people think this transfer of student debt onto the backs of taxpayers is not what our nation needs right now. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, Tim, maybe that court didn't watch that ad, and maybe that's why they ruled that way. But I mean, my thing is, this was wrong from the get-go, right? Maybe the administration should be working on actual economic solutions for people who aren't suffering because of their choices. I mean, when people choose to go to college, they know they're going to have a certain level of debt. But when people are paying extra at the grocery store and at the gas pump, that's something that they didn't choose. So maybe Biden should be focusing more on alleviating America's economic woes, and maybe that might make it easier for some of these people to pay back those loans.
Leads me right into my next question, Jeff. Nancy Pelosi was on Face the Nation to clarify inflation, but it's not the issue for Americans, according to her. Listen.
When I hear people talk about inflation, as I heard him there, we have to change that subject. Inflation is a global phenomenon. Yes. The EU, the European Union, the UK, the British have higher inflation rate than we do here. It's not, the fight is not about inflation. It's about the cost of living.
That's what I do with my wife when I'm in trouble. I change the subject. Okay, Jeff, here's a receipt for large eggs. Same store, $1.79 to $7.29 since Joe Biden took office. What do you suppose Nancy Pelosi would call that?
She wouldn't call it anything. She would do exactly what she just did and try to deflect from the issue. The problem is that, I mean, she's right that inflation isn't a problem for people like her. If you're making as much money as Nancy Pelosi and her husband, you don't care about inflation. Unfortunately, Madam Speaker, most Americans don't make the money that you make, so it's hurting us when we go to the grocery store. But this is yet another reason why Democrats are up for losing in November, because they want to avoid the issues that Americans have shown that they hold as top priority. Poll after poll after poll after poll shows that the economy is number one. The American people are telling the government what they're concerned about, and people like Pelosi want to ignore it.
All right, here's another one, believe it or not. The White House administration booked a sit-down interview between a man pretending to be a woman and Joe Biden to discuss sexual mutilation of kids. Listen.
Do you think states should have a right to ban gender-affirming health care?
I don't think any state or anybody should have the right to do that. As a moral question and as a legal question.
Oh, Jeff, let's get this straight. Joe Biden has moral issues with not cutting kids' breasts and genitals off, not to mention chemical castration, that is. I remember when harming children was considered morally wrong, Jeff. I think Republicans hope that they continue with this message because I don't think they think the Democrats can win on this victory in November. What do you think?
Well, no, they can't, Tim. And what's sad is that, this comes up when I'm on the show a lot because it keeps happening and the Democrats are so gung-ho about it. I mean, you said back in the day, the idea of doing this to children would be anathema. This just further shows how much the culture rot has pervaded in American society. I mean, the fact that the president of the United States would have no moral qualms with the idea of cutting off body parts of children. And the fact that they're actually pushing for this stuff to be taught in schools and to indoctrinate people into this gender identity ideology, it's sad. We have to push back against this.
Jeff, this is Greg. AOC went to the University of California, Irvine, there in Southern California, to rally liberals and Hispanics. But she found out there were Latinos who were not on board with her and a progressive agenda. Have the Democrats misjudged Hispanic Americans and what matters to them?
Well, first off, Greg, I'm a little bit disappointed in you. The term is Latinx, okay? You don't want to make AOC mad by using the wrong term. But I will say that, no, they're way out of touch with what racial minorities want in general. Black people, Hispanics, they tend to be more conservative. And as the party shifts further to the left, they're just going to lose more of us. And they don't seem to understand that yet, or maybe they just don't care.
Billionaire founder of crafts and home goods store Hobby Lobby says his Christian faith is behind his decision to give away ownership of the company rather than pass it down to family. David Green founded Hobby Lobby in 1970 with a $600 loan. The business grew into a multi-billion-dollar company, and Green himself is worth nearly $14 billion. Green says he was really just a steward of what God had grown, calling God the true owner of his business. Hobby Lobby has always closed on Sundays despite it being a high-profit shopping day and took good care of employees, paying a minimum wage of $18.50. The company sued the Obama administration and won over a mandate to cover abortion-related drugs for employees in 2014. Greg?
All right. I have spent a lot of time at Hobby Lobby with our family, so that's a great story. Tim, as we go today, the news, some of you are troubled by the things you see, tattooing babies and all the other things. There's a phone number at the bottom of the screen you can call. And there's a licensed prayer minister waiting right now to pray with you, to minister to you. They're there all the time. You can call them anytime that you feel like you need to. Write the number down, have it ready. Tim, as we go today, I'm bringing you in and think about it. We are, 15 days away from an election?
Yeah, in case you didn't know, everyone, it's 15 days until we get a chance to go out and cast our vote. And Greg, you and I talk about it so many times on this program, how important it is that people exercise their constitutional right in this country.
It is vitally important. It is your seed. It was given to you for you to use. God gives seed to sowers. He expects you to sow your seed. Well, I don't know if this election is going to be fair. That doesn't matter. I'm going to sow my seed. I'm going to do my part and trust Him and the angels to watch over that vote.